coordinator of the center, and I would like to welcome you all here tonight. We are so excited about this wonderful Egyptian cultural night, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I promise we have fantastic program for you tonight. Lots of surprises, entertainment, wonderful presentations. And to start with, I'd like to acknowledge quickly our VIPs, His Excellency Mr. Khalid Rizq, and His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Haris. Welcome. And also, on behalf of the council, we have our wonderful councillor, Angela Vilela. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. And also let me, acknowledge some of the people who worked with us tonight. I think it's been fantastic. We have a great, members of the Egyptian community who really worked hard to put this evening together. I'm so grateful. It's great to see everybody coming together. Our councillor will acknowledge each name, so I'll leave that. I don't want to repeat that, or I don't want to steal your thunder. So I would like to also acknowledge the staff of Darebin Intercultural Centre who work day and night really hard. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague here, Mohammed Al-Hadini. Ken Karaoke, fantastic job. Wonderful job as well. And not to forget the beautiful, most beautiful smile, Melinda Allenda. She was welcoming everyone. Also, I'd like to acknowledge wonderful person from DEC, Darebin Ethnic Community Council, Mr. Suryan Naila, who is always with us, support us. Amazing. Thank you, Suryan. Thank you, DEC, for being always there. Strong partner with the Darebin Intercultural Centre. I know we have amongst us tonight people from the media. I'd like to acknowledge from El Telegraph newspaper, Ms. Najwa Farakis, and also from 3ZZZ Radio, Heidi Iskandar. And I'd like to acknowledge now, for special reason, an old colleague who worked together in SBS, the wonderful Mr. Farouk Yassin, who was the head of our program on SBS, and also now he's the president of the Australian Egyptian Cultural Association. I'll leave it at that. We're going to have a little bit of music. Musician? Are you ready to play something before we start the speeches? Samir and Sargon, you are wanted here, please. I turned my head and you disappeared on me. Thank you. And I believe everyone tonight had some trouble getting here because of the traffic and so on. So we start with a little bit of music just to refresh, to relax and get ready to enjoy the show. Thank you.
I wanna thank you for inviting us for tonight. مع الامكانيات الموجوده الليله صعب نحن نعمل شيء كرمال السبيكرز.
تمام بس عربي.
شو يعني امكانيات؟
No. Okay, what they do, they apologize a little bit about some limitations with the system. We apologize.
We can't
do your best. This is Samir and this is Sargon.
I don't know.
Thank you. Yes, خلاص بلش. Okay, I'll be reminded by my colleague Shanaka there and my colleague Jackie Mansourian. They're doing, Shanaka is filming tonight. So if you don't like to be filmed, please put your hand up, because our film, our video is going to be broadcast on YouTube. All our events on YouTube for a reason, because we like to spread this knowledge to the rest of the Darebin community and the world. We are very proud of it. And also on Facebook, we have digital photos. Thank you so much.
One thing about other won't die, will I?
Samira is a good
afternoon. You're doing a great job despite the technical difficulty. However, the next one will be much better. And we'll hear from you soon. Thank you. All right, now we continue with the program. And we'd like now to introduce our wonderful councillor, Angela Villela, to really welcome you to Darebin. So, councillor, please take the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, the wonderful Inam. I'm actually here tonight on behalf of the Mayor of Darebin, who sends his apologies, but unfortunately is interstate to another event. So, good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. I love the Intercultural Centre. So, it is my pleasure to be here, and I feel very privileged. So, good evening and welcome to the City of Darebin and the Darebin Intercultural Centre to celebrate this special occasion, the Egyptian Cultural Night. A very warm welcome to His Excellency, Mr. Khaled Yusri Risk, and I apologise, Risk, thank you, and the Consul General of the Arab Republic of Egypt, and His Excellency, Mr. Ahmed Hareh, the Consul of the Arab Republic of Egypt. And also welcome to Mr. Farouk Yassin, the President of the Egyptian Australian Cultural Association. So welcome to you all, and we are very honoured to have you here tonight. Thank you very, very much. Also importantly, I would like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the land on which we gather here today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. So we are here tonight to celebrate the Egyptian Cultural Night at the Darebin Intercultural Centre. The centre is a space which aims to be an area for intercultural dialogue and interaction between Darebin's diverse groups, of which we have many, of a range of activities after hours and on weekends, to build intercultural skills and competence through formal and informal training and learning opportunities, and to break down the barriers between culturally diverse groups. That's very, very important to us. We like to foster respectful and constructive interracial, intercultural and interfaith relations between and amongst people who live, work or study in the city of Darebin. We aim to challenge racism and discrimination through education and knowledge building. It's very important. And position the city of Darebin as a role model of intercultural city. Just tonight, when I was talking to our esteemed guests, the city of Darebin, Melbourne is very multicultural. And I said, yes, it is very multicultural, we know that. But here at the Intercultural Centre, what we do is we actually make multiculturalism come alive. It's very real. We don't just say, oh yes, Melbourne's multicultural or Darebin's multicultural. At the Intercultural Centre, we make it happen. It really is a place where it's a living, breathing space of interculturalism at its finest, and we're very proud of that. So since establishing this centre in July 2011, over 700 events, forums and activities have been held with over 40,000 Darebin community members participating. That's pretty amazing for a newly established part of the and I know that we acknowledged the staff, but I think that a lot of the success has been the wonderful staff, but in particular the leadership of wonderful Inam, who is really the driving force of this centre's success. And we as a council know that the Intercultural Centre is unique in Victoria, and we will go so far as to say Australia and the world. Why not? It is. So it is very, very special, and we're very, very lucky. So I'm delighted that our partnership with members of the Egyptian community, namely Miss Mary Hanna, Miss Farida Bita, Miss Amal Diab, Mr. Sukri Sidrak, and Mr. Hussein Khalaf, and Dr. Magday Iskandar,
Very good.
thank you, has resulted in such a wonderful event for this very significant occasion. And I would like to express our appreciation to the Consulate General of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Melbourne, for providing information kits. The Darebin community is a highly diverse community with people coming from 148 different countries and who speak 105 languages. And that's just a marvellous, wonderful thing. I personally have been to a number of Australian citizenship ceremonies here as my role as councillor, and we had one about a month ago where immigrants have taken on Australian citizenship. One of the highlights of being a councillor, and we have people becoming citizens coming from Canada, America, Poland, China. The last ceremony was, again, just wonderful, diverse representation of people from all over the world. So it's great. So the residents of this municipality love, cherish and celebrate Darebin's cultural diversity. They appreciate the fact that they can walk down High Street from Northcote to Reservoir, where I live, and come across shops, restaurants and businesses offering a variety of cultural experiences, whether through the food they have to offer or the products they sell or the community events they attend, such as this one today. Tonight's events reflect the success of cultural diversity here in this council. I believe this event will include cultural and musical performance and a great Middle Eastern banquet. This evening also promotes Darebin's cultural diversity. Furthermore, just a thing about food. In other areas in Melbourne, people say, oh, it's great that we're multicultural, because I go to Egyptian restaurants, sometimes we know that multiculturalism is more than just the restaurants, more than just the food. It's the relationships, I think, that we forge with people from the 148 different countries, the relationships we forge with people who speak 105 different languages. That's really what multiculturalism means to us, and something that we take very seriously here at Darebin, not just the restaurants. But they make it a tasty experience, don't get me wrong. Tonight's events, furthermore, this type of event benefits both the Darebin Egyptian community and members of the broader community, absolutely, as it develops opportunities for the local community to share their culture, traditions and knowledge. That's very much the essence. Tonight's cultural celebration will help the local community to develop its own identity. And I think that's really important. We come here as migrants, we have our own identity, very different from the motherland. Promote harmony and allow the residents of Darebin to get to know each other. It will highlight the positive aspects of the cultures. And at the 2011 census, which is where we get the information, the government gets the information about the population, there were 381 residents who were born in Egypt living in Darebin, so making up 0.3% of the population. In Australia, in a 2011 census, there are 36,534 residents who were born in Egypt living in Australia. Compared to the rest of the Australian population, a greater proportion of people born in Egypt are between the ages of 40 and 80 years old. So there's a significant Egyptian community here in Australia. The following languages are spoken at home by a significant proportion of Egyptian-born Australian residents: Arabic, English, Greek and Italian. Egyptians also have a very high proficiency in English, and many are very skilled, with more than 40% having attained a diploma or higher education qualification. And in fact, as I was saying before to the gentleman here, growing up in Italian background, born here, my parents, worked in factories in the 60s, nothing unusual. And a lot of the Egyptian friends that my mother and father had all spoke like 5, 6 languages: French, Italian, Greek, Maltese. So I always felt that the Egyptians that I met were incredibly cosmopolitan, very sophisticated, and wonderful with the languages. Which I only speak two and a bit. Yeah, how many do you speak? 5. That's amazing. Actually 4. We got 6. Anyone beat 6? How many you speak? 6. That's amazing. Sorry? Yes, of course, va bene, Italiano, sì. So I've always, as someone who loves languages, and I teach languages, I've always found that to be such an amazing gift, truly. So it's wonderful. So anyway, so on behalf of the Darebin Council and the community, I acknowledge the contribution of the Australian Egyptian community to the development of the diverse and harmonious city. Finally, I invite you to share with one another and to join the activities on offer tonight. I wish you all a very happy celebration. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, our wonderful Councillor Angela Villela. We honestly, we rely on your support and for all what you do. Thank you. And now, may I introduce His Excellency Mr. Khalid Yusriris to say a few words. Thank you.
I'll try to be as short as I can so everyone can enjoy this evening. Councillor Angela Villela, Mrs. Man, In'am Barakat, Darebin Intercultural Centre Coordinator, members of the Egyptian community, and of course I acknowledge the presence of Mr. Fadil Yassin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you all to this outstanding intercultural Egyptian night here in the beautiful city of Darebin. Over the year, the state of Victoria has been no stranger to cultural diversity, housing individuals of all races, religions, and background. Last month, I got the chance to attend another cultural event at the city of Knox, where the Honorable Nick Kutsiras, Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Citizenship, and Minister for Energy and Resources, and the Chairperson for Victoria Multicultural Commission, Mr. Chintan, were the guest of honor. At that special event, there was a notable Egyptian presence on the stand, showcasing Egyptian products and various traditional Egyptian recipes, as well as a demonstration of Egypt's famous belly dancing in the cultural show. I am fully confident that our gathering tonight in Darebin, as well as the one in Knox last month, will both contribute significantly to promoting Egypt. And I'm personally proud to see that Egyptian immigrants, while they are active members of the Australian community, have not forgotten their roots. And it is my pleasure to endorse and assist any efforts in the future to promote Egypt's rich cultural heritage. Right now, Egypt is undergoing a rough transitional period, as you all know. We have many difficulties ahead of us, but I'm certain that we will preserve and continue along the path to a better Egypt. Before I conclude my speech, I would like to present my gratitude and thanks to Councillor Angela Villela, as a representative of the Council of Darebin and the Mayor of Darebin. And I wish to present a gift from the consulate, and if I may, on behalf of the Egyptian community here in Darebin.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, and sorry, you're going to continue?
Just
Yes. All right. We'll wait. Sorry. That's all right.
one second.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And of course, I would like to present my gratitude and thanks to all those who participated in organizing this magnificent event. I hope that we can meet again in future events that will bring Egyptian and Australian together and allow us to celebrate Egypt's magnificent heritage. Thank you all, and I hope you will enjoy, as I will, the rest of this evening.
and Darebin city, the city of Darebin more generally. I'd like to offer a gesture of our appreciation of your presence here. I know that for the Egyptian community to have representatives from the motherland is always a very special thing. I know it happens in all ethnic communities. I know it happens in my community, that when we have representation from the motherland, that connection, that respect, the history stays alive, and it is a very, very special thing. So on behalf of the Egyptian community here in the city of Darebin, thank you for coming. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your lovely words. And hopefully we'll see you around, both of you, more than just this event, but it'll be an ongoing relationship. So thank you to both. Thank you very much. Lovely wrapping it up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now we get going to our formal program. We're going to have a wonderful presentation about Egypt, and may I introduce Ms. Aman Diab. She's a wonderful member of the Egyptian community and the Australian community. She's an educational consultant who's done so much. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Welcome all. I don't want to be long because talking about Egypt. Is it okay like that? Everyone can listen? No? No, you closer? Yeah, I have to be close. Okay. Well, now we have the map of Egypt, which is there. I would like to talk briefly about the geographic strategic position of Egypt. Egypt, my beloved Miss, the name Egypt derives from the Greek Aegyptus, and this is where we today use to differentiate our Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria from the rest of Christian Orthodox Church in Egypt and the Middle East. Egypt is a transcontinental country spanning the northeast corner of Africa and southwest corner of Asia via a land bridge formed by the Sinai Peninsula. Most of its territory lies within Africa, bordered by the Mediterranean Sea to the north, the Sudan to the south, Libya to the west, and we have the Red Sea to the east, also the Gaza Strip and Israel to the northeast. Not to forget, very importantly, the Suez Canal, one of the world's most significant waterways, cause of many wars. Connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean, vital link between the West and the East. Completed in 1869, after 10 years' work, at a cost of 100 million sterling pound, then in 1869. The idea was of the engineer Ferdinand de Lesseps, who was at the time a diplomat in Egypt. And it was officially opened in 17 November 1869. The opening ceremony happened on December 1871 after Khidevi Ismail commissioned Giuseppe Verdi to write the Aida opera, specifically for this occasion, with an Egyptian theme. So it was shown and performed for the first time at the Khidevi Ismail Opera House in Cairo, which is equivalent to La Scala di Milano. Yes. Ceremony attended by world leader then and by Eugenie, wife of Napoleon II. Now if we talk about Egypt, a general overview. Egypt has one of the longest history of many modern nations, having been continuously inhabited since the 10th millennium BC. We have the ancient Egypt, the Christian Coptic Egypt, the Islamic Egypt, the modern Egypt, and the contemporary Egypt. The ancient Egyptians created some of the world's most beautiful art and architecture. To this day, this ancient civilization, which produced monuments such as the Giza Pyramids Plateau and the Great Sphinx, the riches of Tutankhamun, along with the ruins like those of Memphis, Thebes, Karnak, the Valley of the King, Hatshepsut temples, and not to forget Abu Simbel temple, and the many obelisks that covers all the world, not only in Egypt. Things have been stolen, and we see them portrayed everywhere. This exerts a strong hold on our imagination and are a significant focus of archaeological study and popular interest around the world. Talking about Egypt, we shouldn't forget religion, which is also the cradle of religion in a way. Was very important to the pharaoh Akhenaten, one of them, who reigned from about 1379 BC to 1369, attempted to suppress the ancient religions of many gods and to institute a monotheistic worship of the sun god. Many would say that he was worshipping the sun, but actually he was worshipping the force behind the sun which brought life on earth. He ruled around 15 years from Tel el Amarna, and after his death he was replaced by his wife, Queen Nefertiti. Sail along the river Nile, cruising between Luxor and Aswan, and you will experience at least 30% of the whole world antiquities. It's the cradle of civilization. This unique history of Egypt and visible monuments to that history helped Egyptians to preserve a distinct natural consciousness and to remain a separate entity during the years of Arab, Mameluke, Ottoman, and many other conquests. The history of Egypt is extremely long. Egypt's rich cultural legacy, as well as the attraction of its Red Sea Riviera, has made tourism a vital part of the economy, employing about 12% of the whole workforce. Tourism suffered extensively from the slowdown of international economy, as well as the present political situation following instability in the Middle East and the Arab Spring, which you could say now it's not spring, it's almost autumn or winter. The 19th century or mid-19th century was the start of modern Egypt, and it started under Muhammad Ali and his launching of modernization. Then we have contemporary Egypt, mid-20th century until now. Started with Gamal Abdel Nasser revolution. Are you listening? My voice is there well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it started from 1952 with Gamal Abdel Nasser, a coup d'etat, but they called it revolution, established a military government. It was a one party. Egypt was ruled autocratically by three presidents over 6 decades. Nasser from 1954 to 1970, Sadat 1971 until his assassination 1981, the worst of all Mubarak with his corrupted entourage for 3 decades until his fall on January 2011 revolution. For a year, Egypt had an interim government led by Supreme Council of Armed Forces. And when we had the first democratic election, it resulted in a catastrophic Muslim Brotherhood President Morsi. Unrest and clashes has persisted since. He is opposed by all of us liberals who will fight until we have a secular proper head of state or government. Egypt is considered to be a middle power with significant cultural, political, and military influence in the Mediterranean, Middle East, and Muslim world. Foreign relations. The permanent headquarters of the Arab League are located in Cairo, and it has always been the head of the Arab League has been an Egyptian, and nowadays Mr. Nabil Al-Arabi, who is an ex-foreign minister, is the head of the league. Also, Egypt has got a number of people who have the winner of the Nobel Prize. We have first Sadat, sharing jointly his Nobel Peace Prize with Menachem Begin after the peace process in 1978. We have the novelist Naguib Mahfouz, the first Arabic writer, who won the prize in literature for his book Children of the Ali, Awlad Haretna, in 1988. We have also Ahmed Hassan Zuhail, a scientist who worked for NASA for so many years in the US, got his Nobel for chemistry in 1999. And we have Mohammed El-Baradei, got his Nobel Prize for Peace, and he was the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. We can say also that the Egyptian media has flourished, more than 30 satellite channels and over 100 motion pictures produced each year. My colleague, Dr. Hussein Khalaf, will elaborate more on that subject. I will let you now enjoy some of the slides about ancient and modern Egypt, but gently before I conclude, I may kindly ask you to join me to put our hands together to thank the manager of the Darebin Intercultural Centre, Ms. Inam Barakat, and staff for organizing these events to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amal. This was wonderful. Great effort you put into this presentation. We're so grateful.
Enjoy now the next slide. This is the revolution.
You turn off the light there.
It's behind the door.
2011, the revolt against Mubarak. Tahrir Square.
Sorry about that. Just a little bit of technical difficulty will be there. And I need to acknowledge the people who are staying next room. Very, very sorry we cannot accommodate you here, but I hope you will enjoy the events with us through the screen. But later on at dinner, we can all gather together and interact and have a great time. No, actually, thank you. We have the best segment. You know, when you doing this cultural events, Middle Eastern cultural events, you never can go past not presenting part of the culture. Tonight we're going to have the best authentic belly dancer in Australia, which we're going to introduce. I think we're having a little trouble with the slides still. Can we guys, how's it going? We can skip to the next one. I mean, we can revisit later. Can you play the CD? Yes. Okay. Can we play the CD, please, for the belly dancer? Please. I think we skip that. Yeah. Let's go to that. Unfortunately, we may try to do it later. CD. And now, That's one of the things we're going to do. We're constantly trying to improve the center. We're going to have the wall pulled down, and we're going to have better technology. The center is only 2 years old, so I think we've done a great job here. We're trying, 700 events and programs since the establishment of the center in July 2011, and more than 40,000 people have been participating in these events, and the feedback been overwhelming. Because to us the feedback from the community is extremely important, so we can keep improving and provide and cater for the interest of the community. May I also remind you that next week is going to be a big week. It's a refugee weeks about the asylum seeker. We have activities organized by Darebin City Council and Darebin Ethnic Community Council. And it's going to be all week events from film night to you name it, it's happening. Don't forget to take flyer and join in, please. We need to support this refugee week. It is very important, and we need to put the human face into it. We want to welcome them as the guests of this country. So please support, please be there, and please be part of it. Thank you. Okay. And now may I introduce the best belly dancer in the whole of Australia, the real artist who goes to Egypt every year to upgrade her skills and belly dance, Miss Virginia. Please make her feel welcome.
Just as well. Arriving in Australia.
Belly dance in Australia, Virginia. Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move to our next presentation. Sorry?
Please continue with the music.
Oh, okay. She's got the other room. Good. I wanted that because... Okay, keep going with the music. Presentation about the film industry in Egypt. It's quite significant, has a significant impact on the rest of the Arab world. So to do that, I'm not the one to talk about it, but may I introduce Dr. Hussein Khalaf. How can I introduce you? Hussein is, Dr. Khalaf came back from London. He was in BBC for 10 years, radio journalist, presenter, and he was in SBS before with Farouk and I. And he's also lecturer in engineering. Thank you so much for putting this together. And a great member of the Egyptian community.
For even giving me the opportunity to be here this evening and to see this wonderful group of guests, and thank you for attending. Thank you for being here. And it's you should understand. Yes, you should understand. I hope you do. That it's very hard to present anything of interest after the wonderful segment of Virginia. So everything will sound and look humble, so you understand that. Okay? The reality is the film industry in Egypt is a very interesting topic, and as Anam in fact flagged that thanks to the cinema industry and what followed by the TV revolution, that is probably the only factor that united the Arab world. As you would be aware that the Arabs are very diverse when it comes to culture, but none of the Arabs would claim that they cannot understand the Egyptian dialect. And the reason for that is just the cinema. The Egyptian cinema has started with the world cinema at the same time, and surprisingly just a week or 10 days after the launch of the cinema in Paris, in France, the first film, the Egyptians had already their own. I have to mention a little thing that it doesn't make any sense to present any presentation about cinema without video clips, but thanks to the technology again, we couldn't make it work. Mine is already, it's working on my Apple, but when it came to the PCs, I can't show the video clips, you know, in action. But I will just say a few words about them. So these are just, it's embarrassing to start with apologies, but here we go. Anyway, so the Egyptian cinema industry, as I said, has already started with the world industry of cinema, which started in Paris in December 1895 in Paris, in a cafe called the Grand Cafe at our Indian Salon. That was the very first cinema show, and this was done by the two brothers Lumière, two French brothers, and this happened, as I said, just less than 10 days or 2 weeks in Alexandria, which is the second capital and the coastal city on the Mediterranean of Egypt. And this happened in January, as we just saw. The first show was in December. This happened in January 1896 in Alexandria, in a cafe in the town as well. In January 1896 in Cairo, the first film was screened, And then it was followed by show in Port Said in 1898. I can't ignore Port Said because there are many Egyptian community members here who have come from Port Said. Okay. Then in January 1897, the first cinema opened in Alexandria, as I said, the coastal city, and this was done for or by Lumiere brothers, the French couple. Here are Lumiere brothers. Then the official birth of the Egyptian cinema production as an industry, in fact, happened in 1907, and that's the first shots of Al-Qamsar and Muhammad Ali squares, two famous squares in Alexandria, were taken and screened by Lumiere brothers, and that happened in Alexandria again, which used to be the most important city in the whole country at the time. On 20 June 1907. Then the brothers Lumiere brought their own equipment, and the first film or shots were taken from Alexandria and represented in short documentary, and this happened in 1917, and then that was followed by the establishment of the Egyptian-Italian Cinema Company. And this is probably one of the earliest cinema machines in the country, in Egypt. The first two films done by the Egyptians, as you would imagine at the time, stories were just a mix of documentaries and newsreels and stories like this. And the names are kind of translation of the names. One of them is called the Bedouin Honor, and the other one is the Dead Flowers. This is the first Egyptian actor, Muhammad Karim, and he then became the first Egyptian director, and to him, he has produced and directed the first film, Egyptian film. Later, he became the dean of the Egyptian Institution of Cinema, and he is still labeled and known as the father of the Egyptian cinema, Muhammad Karim. First film director and actor. As you could see, he was handsome as well. At the time, Egyptians used to be. In 1922, that was the first drama film called, was produced by Fawzi Munib, and it was called The American Army. In 1927, two famous films. One of them was called A Kiss in the Desert, and the other one was Layla, first female star, Aziza Amir. Aziza Amir, this name, in fact, is famous in the Egyptian cinema industry because she later established a studio production in the country, and that was called Heliopolis. Although it wasn't the first studio, but she established the second studio, if it's right to say so. This, in 1932, first vocal film, as you would imagine, the cinema then, until that day, it was just silent, as all the cinema in the world. And then in 1932, that was the release of the first vocal film with sound and with speech in it. And that was called Awlad al-Zawat in Arabic, that is translated to high-class people. And this was done starred by Yusuf Wahbi, later became a very famous Egyptian actor. He was theater, stage and cinema actor, and well renowned and mentioned in the history of cinema. And then Amina Rizk as well. The first female singer is called Nadra, and the Heart Melody, first male singer was Muhammad Abdul Wahab, who is a very famous singer and composer and musician, well established, well known in the history of music, in the Arab music, in the whole Arab world. And he was probably the one to be awarded the platinum record as significance and recognition of his contribution to the Egyptian music, the Arab music in general. I really wanted some of these to move, and that would have added a lot of, interest to the story, but excuse the limitations. Anyway, in 1932, Studio Mas was established, and that was more or less, or in spite of the cultural dimension of the project, it was done by one of the capitalists and entrepreneurs of the country as part of a whole economic revolution in the whole country, and that was done by Talat Harb, if some of you would be aware of the name. And in 1935, between 1935 to 39, pivotal history of the film in Egypt industry, and some of these was El Azima, 1939, and Misr Reel, which was the news bulletin, weekly news bulletin produced, and still, by the way, this is still alive under the same name, still being produced in spite of the cinema and the TV as already kind of let a lot of shadow on them. The first film to be screened abroad of Egypt was called the Wadad, and that was done by Kulthum. And the significance of the name, she was a very famous and a person who was always referred to as united the taste and the interest of the Arab listening art. And she's still, her songs, if any of you have been to Egypt, you would listen to her songs whenever you will be in a taxi, in a cab, in a cafe. They just all the time, Egyptians and all the Arabs, in fact, find their lost love and happiness listening to Kulthum. And that was a production of Studio Masr. In post-World War II, as you would imagine, the World War has already casted some shadow on the industry. However, in 1944, the Egyptian industry produced 16 films. However, by the end of the World War II, in 1946, that number rose to 46. And the directors, many new names in direction of film and the film industry have already appeared on the stage, and new stars as well of the time. And then the first film in color was called Baba Aris, and that stands for The Groom Is My Dad. And I hope Studio Masr production as well. In 1956, that was the production of a very famous film, well known, and it's called Delilah. And this was the first production in color and in CinemaScope or widescreen. And in fact, I would love to run that, but anyway, this is a pity because this scene or that video clip, in fact, is showing the two of the most famous Egyptian film stars and singers. And they bring tears to the ears, to the eyes of many, but pity that we can't play that. Anyway, who is interested, I'm happy to show that later whenever he or she likes to. Then in the 60s, the cinema industry was nationalized, that it was just a trend all over the world, and under the social, economic reforms, the industry itself was nationalized, and the production became under the government system and authority, which saw some decline in the number of films produced, and the number of cinema or movie houses in the country has declined. However, it should be mentioned that that was a rise for the topics covered in the cinema, as it just tended to be more social and more representing to the needs rather than being fancy and the fantasy drama. It became representing to the social fabric of the society with a lot of production, mostly written by famous writers, Egyptian writers like the renowned Naguib Mahfouz, the Nobel laureate, and also at the time there was a revolution and the rise in the stage plays done on the stage. So the years of the 60s, in spite of the let us say the sovereignty of the government and the overwhelming control of the government on the industry of the cinema, it also saw a rise in the topics and the stories covered and the more representation of the people and fabric of the Egyptians and their aspirations as well. During the 60s, cinema industry under government, as I said, and that's another pity. This is another video clip from the cinemas, and this is representing, in fact, a few famous actors and actresses from Egypt who later became worldwide renowned and well-known. Want to mention, many of you would remember Omar Sharif. And this, especially this video clip, is showing Omar Sharif in his early days acting with some of the Egyptian cast. So it's very special. And this film was, interestingly, that particular film was written, or the story is written by Naguib Mahfouz, and the acting in the cast was Omar Sharif. This is another one of the landmarks of the Egyptian cinema, and it's very sorry because this would have been nice and just added some laugh to this gloomy talk. So apologize. And that this is another famous actor, Egyptian actor. His name is Shukri Sarhan, and he in fact contributed to the Egyptian cinema industry for more than 50 years by very, very rich and generous production and overwhelming acting, really. And also as well in that film, very famous dancer, Tahaya Karioka, is always mentioned as one of the early and most outstanding belly dancers in Egypt. And there are several examples of films made in the 60s and 70s, and some of them really were very ambitious and great gross production. Like, for instance, this was Saladin, and this was done in the 60s. And later there are several productions of the same story. This is a historical about the Crusades. And it was little to be mentioned that a production like this, in fact, drove the producers to just became broke. Okay? However, it was just one of the best productions in the history of cinema in Egypt. And in the 70s, the end of government role as the trend of privatization again. And the cinema there, in this time, many new companies and many special private producers have already emerged, and many new generations of cinema or filmmakers as well as actors and actresses. The end of government role happened during the 70s, as well as the Authority of Cinema, Theatre and Music was established, which in fact withdrew from the process of producing films and still kept contributing and supporting by the industry by granting financial aids to producers and contributing into some famous corporate productions. In the criticism of the major topics happened in the 70s or were already observed in the cinema industry in the 70s. The criticism of the economic open door policies, which started in the 70s. And as we would imagine, the cinema industry in a country like Egypt was, moving in the same tandem with the progress and the economic reform of the country. So when it went through the social nationalization, we have seen topics covering the poverty and the social aspirations of people and their hopes and representing the families. And when the new policies of open door and the new economic reform and the liberalism during the Sadat era, the cinema industry went through the same thing, and they started to discuss topics like corruption, like bribery, things. During this time, many famous stars were around, and a few of them to be mentioned. In fact, the famous actors, like this story was the Earth or the Earth, Al-Ard, and this was a famous actor at the time, a famous production. This was produced by Yusuf Shaheen, a very famous Egyptian producer and director, who is well renowned and recognized in the world and has been awarded with several awards from France and in Cannes film festival. And this, one of the actors of the time, also to be mentioned, this who is down there, he is a famous actor still around, Mahmoud Yassin, and he is the brother of Farouk Yassin. That's why I'm happy to mention him tonight. Okay? And these are in the 70s as well, as everyone would probably recall, some of you would recall, the country went through some political changes, interesting political changes, and that saw the last war between Egypt and Israel, and that was already portrayed in many films. As you would imagine, this was just the developments in the country and the changes in the social fabric with a war, ongoing war, which took probably about 40 years of the history of the country. So it has already inflicted on everybody's life and was already shown in several films. Okay? I'm sorry, but in the 80s and 90s, there was the rise of a new trend in the cinema, new realism, with young directors and young stars. And in the number of films is already reflected in that. As we could see in 1984, the whole Egyptian cinema industry produced 63 films. However, in 1986, this number has risen to 95 films. And it should be mentioned here that during this time, in the late 80s, some of these films were just made for the profit, okay? So there have been what we call the contractors cinema industry, people who just produce for the interest of, for the money as business. And this found a very good market in the evolving petrodollar countries in the Gulf and the Saudi Arabia, and because these people had the money, and that's a fact of economics. I mean, cinema wouldn't survive without economics. So at the time, this kind of production has already risen, and the market saw a lot of films which have no value from artistic point of view. However, they had value because they found the market. So that was exporting to these new nations evolving who've got the money, but at the time they didn't have the culture or the depth yet. And this was, there are some examples of this. However, in the 90s and in the late 80s, this trend has already declined, and the number of, and contract films has already decreased substantially. And to be mentioned here is that the new cinemas in other countries, Arab countries, have already started evolving at the time, and some of these used expertise and talents of Egyptian actors or producers and directors, and in fact many of those even studied in the cinema institution in Cairo. And by the end of in the new millennium, the film numbers have already risen substantially, and the industry has already introduced a revenue of about 250 million pounds in 2007 only. So over the last 100 years, it has to be mentioned that the Egyptian film industry have produced about 5,000 films, and now for anyone who follows the Arab satellites, it's a major menu. People just gather to watch all the Egyptian films, which are all around the Arab world in all satellite channels, and people love to see them as a family, as some of them, with action, with drama, with stories, with actors, and this is already the story of the Egyptian film. And again, I apologize that we couldn't show everything, but anyway, that's the story. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
We need to thank Hussein again, because this is fantastic, well-researched presentation. Where else are you going to see this information? Only in here. Darebin Intercultural Centre will give you the real culture. Thank you. Thank you. And now we can't, of course, we've been to Egypt, we've been to the history, we've seen the film industry, but we must, reflect on the Australian Egyptian community. Who's going to be doing that? The best presentation we're going to have from the wonderful Ms. Farida Bitar, and the best friend of, you're all good friends of the Darebin Intercultural Centre, Mr. Shukri Sidrat, who are going to really inform us and bring you back to Darebin, to Australia. Thank you so much. And please put your hands together for the students that have this beautiful Egyptian costume. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I introduce myself, Shukri Sidrak, and this is Ms. Farida.
I also introduce myself. I'm Farida, and I'm very proud to be Australian Egyptian. I hold the two beautiful citizenships, and we have our hearts with Egypt. Please, try to listen to us. We know that it has been too long and lots of hard material for you guys, but we'll make it nice and brief.
We introduced to you the compare between our culture or Egyptian culture and Australian culture, and introduce as well some aspect of population and religion between us here and between Egypt as well. As Farida mentioned as well, we are Egyptian and Australian Egyptian or Egyptian Australian. We belong to Australia, but we are proud as we are Egyptian. Yes, there's population of the world which is compared to Egypt and Australia. And as you see, we are maybe 3 times as Australian population. 4 times, yeah, actually 4 times, yes. Density of population per square meter in Egypt, as you see, it is 84 per square meter, and in Australia is just 0.87 per square meter. And birth rate per year is in Egypt is 24.22 persons per 1,000 persons, and in Australia is 12.28 persons per 1,000. The life expectancy in Egypt is 72, almost 73 years, and in Australia is 82 years. The GDP, what is GDP is the gross domestic product. That means the purchasing price parity BBP per capita. Capita means per person. So if we compare that with in Egypt, it will be $6,000, 545, and we rank in the world as number 110. And in Australia is 42,000.640, and we rank as number 11 in Australia. And this figure, it comes from the CIA World Facebook Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, and that's for 2012.
Now we are going to talk about the Egyptian settlement profile in Australia. According to the Australian 1901 census, 108 Egyptians born were in Australia. By year 1947, the number increased to 803. By year 1954, the number increased to 8,000. By year 1971, the number increased to 282. to 282, sorry, thousand.
28.
Is it 28? 28,000. Sorry for that. On the 2008 census, 31,786 declare that they were of Egyptian ancestry, either alone or with another ancestry, made up 8% of overseas-born population. According to the Australian 2011 census, 36,532 Australian residents declared that they were born in Egypt. Egyptian Australians might also have nominated themselves as being of Coptic ancestry. 1,890 total responses in the 2006 census. The 2000 census shows that the majority of Egypt-born Australian residents are located in Sydney, 16,000 of them. In Melbourne, 11,000, with smaller communities located in Perth, 1,400, and Adelaide, 982, and Brisbane, 897. The majority of Egyptian Australians are Copts, with 19,000 Australian residents declaring membership of the Coptic Orthodox Church at the 2006 census.
I just would like to mention Copt means Egypt in the old language, and anyone who say we are Coptic, that means the Egyptian Orthodox. That means Egyptian Orthodox or Coptic Orthodox. But we are because we are from Egypt, so we called ourselves Coptic Orthodox or Coptic.
Now I'm going to give you a brief idea about the Melbourneian Egyptian community, which boasts a higher percentage of educated and professional members, and that includes teachers, accountants, medical practitioners, chemists, engineers, artists. It also has contributed to community radio and Channel 31 television programs. To conclude everything, we are going to say that Egypt is the most populous country in the Arab world and has often taken or attempted to take the lead among the Arab nations. Thank you for listening for us. We're trying to integrate.
Are we not going to these? Yeah, because some slides as well, if we have time. Yeah, that's just a part of the Egyptian history timeline, and if I don't want to go through all of them, but you can read if you like. Probably maybe 3010 BC, the two kingdoms of Lower and Upper Egypt are united, and in 1279 BC, Ramses the Great has come to the throne. During his region, many temples and monuments are built through Egypt. In 60 Christianity arrived 60 AD after Christ time. Christianity arrived in Egypt. At 646, the Muslim conquest of Egypt. And in 1805, Muhammad Ali, found of modern Egypt, takes the throne. In 1922, Sultan Fuad first became leader of an independent Egypt, succeeded by his son King Farouk. And in 2011, Egyptian vote in the country first free election, which we got President Morsi, Mohammed Morsi. if we looking for this map now, it is we find Egypt, and I don't want to talk much about the map of Egypt because one of our friends talk, but I am interested to show you what does mean or what the flags of Egypt. So the first flag which is presented at the time it is now. It is start from 1984 to now. And the other slide is from the right side. It is represented the time between 1971 to 1984. And the third one, which is in the left, it is presented the time between 1958 to 1971, which flag of Egypt as a part of the United Arab Republic. The one in the other side, it is represented the time of between 1923 to 1958, flag of the Sultan Egypt. Sorry, that's the flag here. And in number 5 there, it is the flag represented of Sultan of Egypt. And the other one, the last one is represented the time between 1881 to 1914, flag of the Khedive of Egypt under British occupation. The Egyptian religion and politics, Islam is between 85 to 90% of Egyptians are Muslim. Vast majority of them as part of the Sunni Islam. Also there are native Sufi and Shia and Ismaili. And for Christians is between between 10 to 15%. Maybe this figure should be changed. I don't know what's that here. Anyway, vast majority of them, as I said before, are Coptic Orthodox, and there are Protestant, Coptic Catholic, and Anglican. We have constitution, which is first new constitution, which is started with in 22nd of December 2012. There's public education system in Egypt. As you see, probably maybe similar to Australia one, we have a primary and secondary and tertiary education. And the first one is for 9 years. Secondary system is for 3 years. And there is some sort of higher education institute and like medicine and solicitor and all the stuff. And this program runs between 4 to 5 years. We have in Egypt around 17 public university and 16 private university and 89 private high education institution and 51 public non-university facility. Al-Azhar was as well, it is part of, it is a university, and it was established in 1970 as a center of Arabic literature and Sunni learning, in which capacity it contained to this day. It could be considered to be the oldest university in the world. Yeah, just to open your appetite to this sort of food, because we're having dinner after this slide.
I think Mr. Shukri shows me because I'm a woman, and women are interested in food and cooking. So, and I'm one of the best cooks too. So, the koshari, which is my favorite, and my family's favorite, full madamas, and that normally we eat this in the morning for breakfast, and it's very interesting and it's very tasty. Molokhia, It's called, my friends, my European friends, they call it green soup, and they love it. It's nice and it's full of iron, like spinach. Halawa, and that's sweet, made of sesame seed and nuts, as you can see. Kunafa, and it's a kind of shredded noodles, very fine, sweet, full of syrup, and it can be made by nuts, with nuts or with cream. Jibna Dumyati, and that's the original cheese in Egypt from the days of pharaohs. In my last visit in Egypt, I saw the cheese, in one of the museums, or it is a museum in the pyramids area. So they conserve it and kept it with the pharaohs. Yeah, and it's hard as a rock. Fata is a mix of bread, rice, and meat of soup. So it's tasty too, and it's made with garlic dressing. Doka, it's like za'atar. If you have tasted za'atar, but this doka is made with coriander, dried coriander, and peanuts, and all grounded, and sesame seed. Falafel, and I think everyone here knows what falafel is all about. So, but the Egyptian falafel is a bit different than the Lebanese falafel. The Egyptian falafel is made with broad beans, not with peas. And it's also delicious. And that's it. Are you hungry now? Yes. So we can move on. Masā al-khair.
Thank you. Big thank you to Shukri and to Farida. It's a great presentation. You made us hungry. I have to defend the Lebanese falafel. Lebanese falafel is tasty too, and it has 2 types of beans. So, okay, no competition here. We're gonna be serving a beautiful dinner, wonderful dinner, including food and something, some of the beautiful Egyptian food. But now I just want to acknowledge the beautiful works on the wall done by Dr. Magdi Iskandar, who is dressed wonderfully tonight, and also he's a medical doctor, but also artist. You are very lucky combining the two. Would you like to come here and just say a few words about your work?
I'm Dr. Magdi Iskandar. I hold 5 degrees in Western medicine and Chinese medicine, and my clinic Chinese medicine. I love it now. For the art, I started to paint when I was 14 years old, and my father encouraged me because he is artist and engineer too. I exhibited in many places in Egypt and Australia and around the world in big galleries. I have my special galleries in Egypt, and here in Australia we made a group from Arabic artists. It's called the Middle East United Fine Artists, and I am the vice president of this artist, and Fuad Tumayan is the president of this art. Also in Egypt, I made many paintings for famous persons, kings and presidents like Nixon, and for a famous person like Jacqueline Kennedy and her daughter, son. Yeah. I came to Australia in 1988, and I love Australia. And I made many exhibitions here, and that's all.
Can I call all the presenters stand here, please? Just stand there. I just want to say that all the yes, microphone. Okay. Very important to acknowledge all the work being done. You've seen the effort, you've seen the research. Really, this wonderful group of people wanted to really share with you everything about the culture, everything about Egypt. So I hope you've enjoyed it. And to thank them, we just have a small token. They lost a lot of energy, so we replaced it with a bit of sugar here. So thank you so much. Also, I need to acknowledge Mary Hanna. She went home ill. Mary Hanna is a wonderful lawyer, and she couldn't be with us tonight. So thank you, Mary. I'm sure she'll be thinking of tonight. But yes, Councillor Dulela, would you like to present?
Yes, thank you so much. Prego. Interculturalism at its best. Sì, senz'altro, grazie. You were gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you very much for your efforts. Thank you, you were gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you for your informative presentation. It was great. It was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. We're going to hear music, but very importantly, I'm very conscious that you are hungry now. You're ready to sample the wonderful food. So what we do, as you know, it's a cozy, beautiful place. It helps people to interact a lot. So we're going to queue there and have our food. So take your food. There's plenty of tables everywhere. You can sit here, you can sit everywhere. Enjoy the food, enjoy the music. Very importantly, interact and talk to each other. One more thing, big favor, we do collect your feedback. We have the beautiful Melinda somewhere there. She will be coming to ask you to fill some of these small surveys. Thank you, and I wish you'll enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.